new inflation data, shows a slight uptick in August to 2.7%. That is on top of all three key inflation indices being up slightly compared to July. Add to that, grocery analysts say sales of Hamburger Helper and other box staples, food meant to stretch budgets and more expensive proteins, are booming. It's an indicator that typically signifies a downturn in the economy. Current sales are at levels previously not seen since the COVID-19 pandemic and the Great Recession in 2008. NewsNation's Alicia Nieves is here to break it down. Alicia, good morning. So what is happening here?
Yeah, I mean, for economists, the Hamburger Helper economy, kind of as you put it there, is really a recession indicator, and it's one that we have seen before. Hamburger Helper, this inexpensive box food item, it was invented back in 1971, 2 years before the 1973 recession, at a time when inflation was 4.3%, and it grew in popularity because of that. Americans needed help stretching $1 and a meal. 50+ years later, as inflation is not necessarily as high, but it has been persistent, right? Plaguing Americans for what, 5 years now? Since the pandemic, we're seeing Americans return to this box food for help. Hamburger Helper sales, as you pointed out, up 15%. And it's not just this box food item. Something like minute rice also up double digits here, in part because other items in the grocery store have become out of reach for some Americans, exceeding the average inflation rate by multiple. Items like beef, for example, at a record high right now, 14% higher. That is 4 times the average inflation rate. You're talking about $6 a pound for beef. And it's not just beef. Chicken, typically inexpensive that families turn to, that is double the average inflation rate, up 6%. And if you're looking for a sweet treat, know that it's going to be a treat with the price of sugar right now. It's really a splurge, up also double the average inflation rate, around 6%. It's not a great sign that Americans are substituting fresh food for what economists call inferior goods to stretch $1. And not to mention, it's probably not the healthiest options either.
Right.
But when you're in economic distress, you do what you got to do to put food on the table.
Alicia, I know this is your wheelhouse, and I'm curious because data is showing that consumer confidence is down, but consumer spending is up.
I am so glad you bring this up because I am someone who focuses on business news and looks at the data, and the data is being a bit skewed by high-income earners. The top 10% of earners right now, they're accounting for almost half, 49% to be exact, of all the consumer spending that we're seeing right now. The other 90%, they're not spending as much, and if they are doing so clearly in distress. Part of the PCE or inflation data that came out yesterday showed since June, most people are spending more than they earn. On the graphic you're looking at, that dark blue is what people are earning and the light blue is what they're spending. So it's no surprise, credit card debt, that is up over $1 trillion. 90-day delinquencies, those right now at a 12-year high, leading to yet another economic indicator and a concern that maybe we're seeing a recession or could be facing a recession. And it's why we're seeing the data you mentioned. Consumer sentiment, that is dwindling, has been at its lowest, for low-income earners. And now we're seeing middle-income earners start to point to signs of distress.
Thanks for breaking it down. Complicated. Thank you for breaking it, making it a bit easier for us to digest. Alicia Nieves.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.